Hey everybody, how's it going? So this is a new one here at the channel, which is going to be really exciting. If you're actually watching it on YouTube, you'll be checking it out in segments. Each discussion segment and the pitch segment will be its own separate upload. And then if you're watching it or I guess listening to it on platforms such as Spotify, SoundCloud, and iTunes, it should just be one long audio track, but with probably time markers listed in the description for your convenience. And today I am joined by Brandon Katz from The Observer, formerly known as the New York Observer. And you can find him on social media platforms like Twitter with the username great_Katzby, which I think is hilarious. But yeah, Brandon, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Josh. I'm excited to talk a little entertainment.
Yeah, we've been kind of trying to do this forever, so I'm happy to finally be able to pull the trigger on it today. But yes, so our topics today, if I didn't already mention it, the first one, we're talking about the sequel trilogy for Star Wars, kind of the legacy of that going forward, since hopefully for when you guys are listening to this, it will be the release weekend of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, technically cementing the final part of the Skywalker trilogy. And then after that, our next segment, we're talking about toxic fandoms here today, which some people may or may not connect to things like Star Wars or the DC films or even the Marvel films, really, considering how ravenous that fan base could be. And then we're going to be transitioning to something I'm personally really interested in talking with Brandon about, which is the streaming wars, which seemingly is just at the beginning of what may be a very long era of subscriptions coming out of my wallet. Ending it off, our pitch segment is basically acting as if Lucasfilm goes to either one of us and basically says, look, the Skywalker saga is over. We need a new face, a new trilogy for this Star Wars franchise. Kind of getting to our last part here, the pitch. So basically the way the pitch works is, Brandon, you will have a solid minute. Actually, my bad, 90 seconds. You'll have 90 seconds to pitch your Star Wars movie after I kind of just act like a studio and I come up to you and stuff like that. And then I'll pitch my version of it, and then we'll let the audience kind of decide, but we'll talk about little things here and there because, you know, obviously we're going to challenge certain aspects of the other's pitch. So, Brandon, somehow I have the key to Star Wars in my hand, and I'm going to give that key to you. But first, I need to know, how will you basically reinvent this franchise? After the Star Wars Skywalker saga, we need a new saga. We need a new face to the franchise. When people think Star Wars, we need something for them to think about besides Anakin, Luke, Rey, Kylo Ren, Obi-Wan. We need something new. What would you do?
Well, Josh, every single Star Wars project, from the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, the sequel trilogy, the spin-off films, the Disney Plus series, all of them take place in roughly the same 60-year period. Now, as much as I love this period of Star Wars, we need to expand this universe rather than keep constricting it. Now, this is Disney, so we're unfortunately restricted to family-friendly content only, but that doesn't mean you can't still deliver a more mature product, such as Captain America the Winter Soldier, Avengers Infinity War, a 4-quadrant blockbuster that still has some adult themes. So what I would like to see is a slightly darker film set in the unknown regions on the planet of Ilum, where ancient Jedi Padawans and younglings would be sent to find Kyber crystals to complete the construction of their lightsabers. Now, I imagine a hostile environment filled with young, ambitious, powerful, Force-sensitive individuals all fighting for superiority in the early days of the Jedi Order, thousands of years before the main saga. Now, imagine a premise that kind of pits them against one another, a little bit like Lord of the Flies, The Hunger Games, Pierce Brown's Red Rising series, in which these different factions are fighting against one another to prove themselves in the eyes of a greater, war-driven, space-bound society. Now, this would help tie into the lore of the Force and the origins of the Force, while also explaining and planting the seeds for the early defections of Jedi to the dark side. 15 seconds down, it would be essentially taking a bunch of young kids, following them through the franchise as they plant the seeds for some turning to the dark side and others continuing on the Jedi Order, and it's a whole bunch of conflict that they start out as friends and it all goes bad. And that's my pitch.
Nice. Nice. I definitely am going to be challenging a few parts of that to win this one.
It's on like Donkey Kong to the break of dawn.
Would you be able to time me by chance?
Yes, I gotcha.
All right. So just let me know when you're ready and I'll start.
All right, Josh. 3, 2, 1, go.
All right. So the biggest thing I'm not going to do when taking on the Star Wars mantle is revisit things that have been revisited in the past. And when I say that, I mean major things, right? I'm not going to do Knights of the Old Republic. I'm not going to do Darth Revan, even though I really want to. Instead, I'm going to do an entirely original story, entirely original characters, original settings, focusing on the origins and the creation of the Jedi and the Sith. Now, with this story, I'll be able to not only explore ancient traditions in the Force, but I'll be able to explore things like the Grey Jedi, basically just Force users that use both the light and the dark. And because it takes place so long in the past, I can foreshadow to things like the Chosen One or other kind of theories in the Force, so to speak, prophecies, if you will. And my favorite thing is if I want to, I can still connect it to other things that people are passionate about, like Knights of the Old Republic or Darth Revan or other original characters and events. So that's what I'm going to focus on here. 15 seconds. All right. So that's what I'm going to focus on because I think it'll give the most creative control and the least amount of criticism because it'll be such a fresh landscape. There's nothing to criticize. There's nothing there before.
All right. I like it, Josh. All right. Let's pool our ideas together and just become the next billion-dollar directors. How about that?
First question I have about your idea. If this is Hunger Games style with, I guess, the younglings and stuff like that, how are you connecting it to the greater franchise? Because I'm connecting mine to the origin of the Jedi and the Sith.
I don't want to connect mine to any current Star Wars traditions. This is also a completely original story. What I want to do is plant the seeds of the first crop of Jedi that defected to the dark side over time. And what I also want to do is simultaneously tell a greater story of why the Jedi abandoned the unknown regions in the first place. Fans have long been curious about the unknown regions, what it holds, what dangerous mysteries lie beyond there. And I want that to also connect to why Jedi feel this pull to the dark side. So there will be a greater arc that connects those two. And we will see these young, teenager-aged Padawans and younglings as they grow up, become Jedi Knights, maybe potentially join the Council, and how these conflicts, political and otherwise, kind of spread a chasm through the Jedi Order long ago before any of the stuff that we know from the main films.
Interesting. And who would you cast as the main lead? You don't have to do like a bunch of leads, just the main lead.
I want new characters. Nobody from the Star Wars lore. No one that we really know. Of course, maybe you can throw a fan favorite here here and there. But I'd love a just completely original creation in which fans don't know what to expect and have to go in completely blind.
Well, how about the actor though, or actress? Who would you kind of like to see in that main role, kind of the new face of Star Wars?
New face of Star Wars. I want like an ensemble, a group of at least 4 to 6 individuals that are going to kind of take the mantle. But it's difficult because my new franchise is going to take place at different times of their life. So there'll be teenagers, they'll be like young, young in their 20s, and then they might be seasoned Jedi in their 30s and 40s. So I wouldn't be able to nail down one, but I'd love to see Jodie Comer. A guy like Daniel Kaluuya. I'd love to see Andre Holland. I'd love to see Carrie Coon. Just a lot of really talented actresses that maybe aren't necessarily blockbuster names. It's not like a Leonardo DiCaprio carrying a movie all by himself, but just talented, dramatic actors who always turn in great performances.
See, for me, I think I would cast, he's not, younger or anything intentionally, but I would cast, I think, Crispin Glover.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting name.
Yeah, because whenever I think about previous performances in the past, and especially, I'm sure you've been following this, American Gods has had quite the production trouble recently, both PR-wise and just in general production issues. His performance as Mr. World, was just so like off-putting to me in a positive way. It made me always imagine like what would be a great role for him. And I can't think of a better role for him than him maybe being the personification as the character of basically the first conflicted Jedi, basically. Like him being that, I guess if you want to use like the Jedi as angels and the Sith as demons, you know, him being the Lucifer of that tribe, basically, like the first fallen one, the first really corrupted one in the dark side. In like a pure sense, because there's no institutions yet for, you know, the Sith or anything. So he'd be really, you know, like the whole thing where the Sith are very emotional and driven by their emotions and greed and lust for power. Like, I think he as an actor would perfectly really be able to play up on those types of characteristics and traits.
I could see that. I think that'd be very interesting. I think Disney would hesitate to base a new franchise on Crispin Glover, but I do see how you could give a kind of light and dark performance.
You'd probably have a flashback and stuff like that here and there, maybe a younger actor, like kind of like your idea a little bit, you know, have a younger actor portray a younger aspect of the character, but the main version of the character that would have been going through the journey of really being the first Sith and probably creating the first Sith religion, if you will, just because I think he would best be able to capture those emotions, bring that character to life. I don't think I can think of anyone else who would do a better job of it. I think he would be off-putting enough. If he played it similar to Mr. World, at least, I think he would be off-putting enough where you could tell something's wrong with him, as if he was like possessed or something, or just corrupted by the dark side. But
listen, if Crispin Glover agrees to tell us all the juicy behind-the-scenes Back to the Future stories, I'm game.
Well, how about this? So let's say your actor, a 360, right? The studio blocks it. You have to go entirely new direction, creative oversight kind of thing. How would that change your story? Like, you have a bunch of younger generation and stuff like that. What if they say you have to have Morgan Freeman?
I would say he could be a sage, wise old Jedi who is the game conductor and basically comes and explains the rules of the kind of Hunger Games Red Rising type challenge that'll pit these Jedi younglings against one another. And he can be also just a source of very, very well said exposition dumps.
So how are you going to satisfy the fans, though, that want to see that lore-rich things? Because I think your idea is interesting, like a Hunger Games kind of style, young Jedi training film. But what if I want, you know, a little taste of things like the first holocrons and prophecies of the Chosen One and this and that that'll bring balance to the Force, which my movie would be the first official instance of unbalancing the Force. Like, how would you compete that?
Well, it would tie in the sense that you would see the first crop of Jedi start to be seduced by the dark side. But I don't want to play into the traditional, familiar, standard tropes that all Star Wars films have built around. I want to delve into new territory that doesn't rely on some of the very well-trodden territory we've already been given. You know, this isn't about rehashing the same exact themes and plot mechanisms. This is about striking new territory that can support a new franchise.
Do you have any challenges for my pitch?
I think what I'd like to see is maybe you say you want it to be an original tale, but yet you want to tie it in a lot to what is already known. How would you differentiate it from certain, you know, maybe expanded universe canon Star Wars explorations that we've seen that have touched on somewhat similar material?
Well, I think I would have it take place in an entirely different world, entirely. I don't know if I would do outer regions, unknown regions, maybe visit the core worlds. I don't know exactly the exact setting in that capacity, but I'm pretty sure I would do an entirely new world along with entirely new characters that have never been mentioned before or anything like that, just for the explicit fact that I wouldn't want it to be based on, or not based, but like weighed down by any previous maybe conceptions about this or that. Like, in my mind, I'm thinking this is the lost story of the creation of the Sith. This is like the story you never heard, basically. You know how the Sith started, but do you really know how the Sith started? That kind of thing. Except for hopefully it doesn't take the same turn as The Amazing Spider-Man with the untold story kind of thing they were pushing when that came out. So I guess that's kind of how I would do it. I would just do something entirely original, entirely never before seen. If I was in the writer's room and I heard something, a character mentioned or a world visited that's been visited before in a previous Star Wars film or TV show, immediately change it. If it's called Mustafar, all of a sudden we're going to Mustafai. Like, like things like that, just to make sure there's nothing that, the fan base can, get upset about. And all of a sudden, it's tied to this. And I don't want to go on YouTube and see how this movie ties to Revenge of the Sith Explained or something like that.
All right, so when are we shooting them, all right? When are we starting casting? Let's get it going, Josh.
Yeah, I'll just send a quick message to Kathleen Kennedy really quick after she finishes her press tour.
She'll give us $100 million each, no problem. Don't worry about it.
That's more than enough for mine. I mean, luckily for me, I'll probably cast all unknowns besides Glover, so it'll just be pretty low budget. All the money will focus on the Force lightning that he will eventually produce.
All right, then let's open ours on the same weekend so we can have a true conclusion to the pitch debate off.
Yours will go on Disney Plus.
Well played, sir. Well played.
Yeah, but Brandon, thanks for joining me today. It's been great. Feel free to follow Brandon on Twitter at @great_Gatsby. And yeah, well, I guess I'll just leave it off to you really quick to say any final thoughts.
I just want to thank you for having me on, Josh. It was a whole lot of fun. And for everyone listening, just keep loving entertainment.
For those listening on YouTube, feel free to subscribe, comment, like, share the video. And if you're on a platform like SoundCloud, iTunes, or Spotify, thanks for listening on those. I know it's probably a very long listen at this point. Hopefully it fit well with your commute to work or from work to home. And give it a share if you like, a little heart like on SoundCloud, and follow us, add us to your favorites on iTunes and Spotify, and we'll see you guys later.